He was cuffed on his own front lawn, still wearing his hospital ID bracelet. Neighbors watched. No one stepped in. The officer said he matched a description, even as his son screamed, "That's my dad." But what the body cam didn't show would spark national outrage. So why was the footage edited before the public saw it? Before we deep dive into this interesting story, subscribe to our channel, and tell us where are you watching from. Share in the comments below. Donovan Ellis had built everything with his own hands. Not literally. Those hands now signed million-dollar contracts and typed strategy memos at lightning speed. But every square inch of his success came from nights others spent sleeping, weekends they spent partying, and rooms he had to fight his way into just to be ignored. At 38, Donovan was the founder and CEO of Alexatech, a booming AI security startup that had recently crossed $120 million in valuation. From Silicon Valley to the tech corridors of Atlanta, his name had weight. He'd graced covers of Fast Company and Forbes, given keynotes at MIT and Google, and was currently negotiating a government contract that could secure generational wealth. But here in his own neighborhood, Crescent Oaks, one of Atlanta's wealthiest gated communities, he was never just Donovan. He was the black one. Neighbors smiled tightly, some avoided eye contact altogether. Even now, after 3 years in his mansion, overlooking the artificial lake and adjacent golf course, a course that had silently declined his membership application, there were whispers. At HOA meetings, they nodded politely, listened when he spoke, but never asked for his opinion. His presence was tolerated, never fully embraced. In his home, the pattern repeated. He employed a white estate manager, 2 white groundskeepers, a part-time chef, and a rotating agency staff for deep cleaning. Only one face looked like his, Gloria, the live-in housekeeper. Older, quiet, and sharp as a scalpel. She rarely spoke unless spoken to, but when she did, her words were measured like gospel. Donovan respected her more than most executives in his boardroom. He never let it show. Not the slights, not the assumptions, not the exhaustion. He had learned early, control your face, control the narrative. When people thought of him, they should think leader, not angry. Black man. He mastered the art of corporate small talk, smiled through backhanded compliments, and nodded when venture capitalists called his rise inspirational. Never deserved, never inevitable. Every morning, he jogged past homes where white neighbors barely waved. Every week he entered restaurants where hostesses assumed he was an athlete or a celebrity's driver. And every time he handed over his black American Express, someone double-checked his ID, even when the white woman in line before him didn't. But inside his mansion, Donovan demanded and paid for professionalism. His home was a fortress of order, marble floors polished to a shine, security systems he'd personally designed, and a 7-figure art collection curated to make one point: he belonged. Still, he noticed it. The way his staff over-explained their tasks to him, as if justifying their presence. The subtle tone shifts, the extra effort to sound deferential, but never warm. He was Mr. Ellis, always formal, always at arm's length. Behind his back, he sometimes caught fragments. "Yeah, the black boss is back early. You know he watches everything on those cameras. He probably grew up with nothing. No wonder he's paranoid." Donovan never responded. Not directly. He just made notes, mental and digital, of who could be trusted and who couldn't. He didn't have the luxury of reacting. That was a privilege reserved for men who looked like his COO. Nathan, 6 foot tall, Ivy League white guy with the air of someone who'd never been second-guessed. Donovan had been second-guessed his entire life. And yet, he had made it. He had the wealth, the titles, the mansion, the tech empire, a son enrolled at a top-tier prep school, and a staff that kept everything running. But deep down, he knew the truth. To many of them, in his neighborhood, in his own company, he was still the exception, never the rule, the anomaly. The black boss, not the boss, the black one. And that distinction sat in every handshake, every boardroom pause, every smile that never reached their eyes. Still, he kept moving, grinding, delivering, building, until one random Wednesday morning, when an early investor call got rescheduled, and Donovan came home 3 hours ahead of schedule. He parked in the driveway instead of the garage, left his briefcase in the car, and decided to walk in through the side entrance, near the solarium. He was halfway down the hall when he heard voices. One was familiar, Gloria's steady, almost maternal tone. The other was softer, curious. It was his son, Langston. Donovan slowed his steps. They were in the living room. He stayed just out of sight, not out of paranoia, but curiosity. What he heard next made him freeze. Gloria wasn't talking about chores, or homework, or cleaning. She was teaching. But not math, not reading, not manners. She was teaching Langston something else. Something heavier. Donovan's jaw clenched, then dropped. Because the words spilling from Gloria's mouth weren't just educational. They were dangerous. What she was teaching his son in his home without permission wasn't just controversial. It was the kind of truth America punished people for telling. The sound that reached Donovan's ears wasn't the hum of a vacuum, or the clink of dishes. It was Gloria's voice. Low, calm, deliberate, the kind of tone people used when they wanted to be remembered. He moved closer, careful not to creak the floorboard near the doorway. His son, Langston, sat cross-legged on the Persian rug, his school uniform wrinkled, backpack tossed aside. Gloria sat across from him, her posture straight, her palms resting on her knees. The mid-morning light fell between them like a stage spotlight. "And that's why you have to know where you come from," Gloria said softly. "Because if you don't, they'll tell you where they think you belong." Langston frowned slightly, the way children do when something too big for their age suddenly feels true. "But my teacher says we don't talk about those things. She said it makes people uncomfortable." Gloria gave a small, tired smile. "Baby, the truth's been making people uncomfortable since the day the first ship docked." Donovan's breath caught. He leaned against the wall, his heart thudding harder than it should. He had walked into hundreds of meetings where words like diversity and inclusion floated like polished stones. But hearing this in his own living room, from the mouth of his housekeeper, directed at his 9-year-old son, was something else. Langston twirled a small toy drone in his hands. "But Daddy says I can be whatever I want when I grow up." "You can," Gloria said, voice firm. "But the world might not clap for you the same way it claps for others. And you need to know why before you step out there." Her words landed like invisible stones in the air, soft but heavy. Donovan's jaw tightened. Gloria wasn't wrong. She wasn't lying. But it wasn't her place. That was what echoed in his head. It's not her place. Yet he couldn't move. Couldn't interrupt. Couldn't even decide whether he wanted to. Gloria continued, her voice low and unwavering. "You see, Langston, your father's a strong man. Stronger than most. But there are doors he had to knock on twice. Jobs he had to prove himself for when others were handed them on their first try. That's the world you're growing up in. Don't hate it, but don't ever forget it, either." Langston blinked. Is that why people look at him funny sometimes? That single question hit Donovan like a fist to the ribs. Gloria hesitated, choosing her next words carefully. "Yes, sweetheart. Sometimes people look at you funny because they've never had to see someone like your daddy in the place he's standing. It's not your fault, and it's not his, but it's real." Silence filled the room again, stretching long and taut. Donovan realized this wasn't a conversation about rebellion or politics. It was something deeper, something that had lived in Gloria for years, maybe decades, waiting for the right pair of ears. Langston spoke again, quieter now. "Miss Gloria, were you ever scared?" Gloria's lips curved, but not into a smile. "Every day, baby. But fear's not the enemy. Forgetting who you are, that's the real danger." Outside, a breeze rattled the glass panels. Inside, Donovan's chest felt tighter. His instinct screamed to stop it. Yet the father in him, the man who had been called sir with a smirk, the boy from Detroit who had been frisked for no reason, he understood her. He just didn't know if he could let her continue. Langston tilted his head. "Is that why people didn't come to my birthday? Mom said they were busy." Gloria's eyes softened. Sometimes busy means uncomfortable. Sometimes it means people don't know how to show up for someone who reminds them of things they'd rather forget. Donovan swallowed hard. He could feel heat creeping into his chest. She was walking a tightrope, and if anyone overheard this, it wouldn't be her job at risk. It would be his reputation, his brand, his company. Gloria reached behind her and unfolded a small worn book. Its spine was cracked, its pages faded. Donovan recognized it. It wasn't one of the storybooks from Langston's shelf. "This belonged to my boy," she said quietly. "He loved this book. He used to read it to me every night." Langston looked up. "Where is he now?" A pause, then a breath that carried years of pain. "He's gone, baby. The world took him too early. Donovan felt something shift. Her boy? He had known Gloria for years, but never heard her mention a child. Langston frowned. Was it because he did something bad? Gloria shook her head. No, he did something ordinary. He walked home. Donovan felt his stomach drop. The silence that followed was different this time. Thicker, charged. Gloria didn't explain further. She just opened the book, showing a faded note scribbled inside the cover. You said to dream big, Mama. So I... Her fingers lingered on the ink. I tell you these things, Langston, because the world is still teaching the same lessons it taught him, and I don't want you to learn them the hard way. Donovan could feel the weight of every word pressing against his ribs. His throat felt dry. Langston's voice broke through. Did the police help him? Gloria's eyes glistened. They said it was a misunderstanding. That word hung in the air like smoke. Donovan's pulse quickened. The quiet ache in her tone carried something he had heard before in news clips, in court testimonies, in whispered stories between black parents. And then Langston asked the question that made Donovan step forward without thinking. Could that happen to me too? Gloria inhaled sharply. She didn't answer right away. When she finally spoke, her voice cracked for the first time. Not if we do our part to make sure it doesn't. Not if you keep your head high and remember who you are, no matter what they say. That was when Donovan took a step into the doorway. The floorboard groaned beneath his shoe. Gloria's head lifted instantly. Langston turned too wide-eyed. Donovan stood there frozen between two worlds. Father and employer, protector and pragmatist. Gloria rose slowly, her expression unreadable. The open book trembled slightly in her hands. For a moment, no one spoke. The silence was deafening. Finally, Donovan's voice broke it. Calm but sharp-edged. What are you teaching my son, Gloria? The question wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It carried the weight of status, fear, and something darker, an unease that had been festering long before this moment. Gloria didn't flinch. The truth, sir. Donovan's jaw tightened. Whose truth? Mine. His. Yours, she said softly. The one they don't print in textbooks. Langston looked from one adult to the other, eyes darting, confused. Did I do something wrong? Neither answered. The clock ticked once, twice. Donovan wanted to control the moment, to pull his son away, to reassert his authority, to shut this down before it spiraled, but something in Gloria's eyes stopped him. There was no defiance there, only a tired courage. He didn't realize until later that Langston had silently slipped the little book into his backpack. And as Donovan finally turned away, words half formed on his tongue. Gloria whispered something he wasn't supposed to hear. She's still out there, she murmured under her breath. Donovan froze at the edge of the hallway. Who's still out there, he asked. Gloria looked up, startled. Nothing, sir. Just talking to myself. But the way her hand gripped the chair said otherwise. Donovan didn't know it yet, but Gloria's story and the woman she had just referenced would soon drag his entire world into the kind of spotlight no amount of money could dim. Donovan stood in the doorway, the air between them thick with unspoken history. Gloria's hands, once steady, now gripped the chair tighter than she realized. Langston sat silently, eyes bouncing between his father and the woman who had just spoken truths he'd never heard before. For a moment, no one moved. Donovan's voice, when it came, was measured but laced with pressure. Langston, go upstairs. Now. Langston looked confused, but obeyed without protest. He took his backpack, now heavier with a story he didn't fully understand, and disappeared up the stairs, one step at a time. The silence that followed felt like it had been waiting for years. Donovan stepped fully into the room, slowly closing the door behind him. His voice was low, controlled. Gloria, I don't know what's going on, but that kind of talk isn't appropriate. Gloria straightened, but her eyes didn't flinch. You mean the truth, Mr. Ellis? He exhaled sharply through his nose. I'm saying there are ways to have conversations, and teaching my son about trauma and fear without my consent isn't one of them. You think I wanted to teach him about trauma? She asked. Her voice wasn't angry, it was raw. You think I plan to bring up my son? You think I enjoy this? Donovan paused. The tension between them wasn't just employer and employee. It was deeper, older. The lines drawn by power, by class, by skin. He's 9, Donovan said, walking past her to the window, looking out toward the hedges. 9. Do you know what I was doing at 9? Reading comic books. Figuring out how to fix our kitchen radio. Not that. Gloria folded her arms. And where did all that safety get you? That stopped him. He turned slowly. You don't think I know what world we live in? She asked. You think I don't carry it in my spine every time I leave this house, or get followed in a store, or have to watch how I talk in front of white folks just to keep my job? You're not wrong, Gloria, he said, voice tight. But this isn't the way. Not like this. Not with my son. Gloria looked down for a moment, then back up, eyes misting. I stayed quiet when I saw that boy get pushed into the lockers at Langston's school last year. Stayed quiet when your landscaper said he didn't trust young black boys because they steal. I've stayed quiet for 6 years, but your son asked me why people stare at his daddy. What was I supposed to do? Lie. Donovan's silence wasn't approval, but it wasn't condemnation either. She stepped closer, her voice soft now. He's going to grow up whether you prepare him or not. I've already buried one child, Mr. Ellis. I won't watch another walk blindfolded into the same world. His jaw worked. Something inside him threatened to fracture. You don't understand, he said, finally. Everything I've built, everything I've worked for, it can disappear, just like that. One wrong story, one wrong soundbite. I don't get to make mistakes, Gloria. I don't get to be the angry black father on the internet, with a maid teaching his son about racism. She held his gaze. Then maybe the problem isn't what I said. Maybe it's the world that would punish you for it. That hit deeper than he wanted to admit. You think I haven't thought about this, he continued, pacing now. You think I haven't sat awake wondering when to talk to him about the police, or about why he gets followed in toy stores. You think I haven't felt that pressure, but I wanted to buy him time, just a little more time before he realizes that he's not just a child, that to some people he's a threat, she said, finishing his sentence. They stood in silence again. A long, aching silence. Then she spoke again, quieter. Do you remember that morning, 2 years ago when I came in late and said my car wouldn't start? Donovan nodded, slowly. Yeah, I lied. I was late because I was sitting outside a courtroom, listening to the case about the officer who shot my son. Donovan froze. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't cry. She just stared out the window, now the light casting shadows across her cheekbones. They said it was justified, she said. He fit a description. He was walking home. No record, no weapon. Just wrong place, wrong skin. Donovan's eyes closed slowly. She turned back to him. So when Langston asked me that question, I heard my boy's voice. And I did what I wish someone had done for him. I told the truth. He sat down on the edge of the couch. Shoulders slumped, breath shaky. It was too much. Too fast. Too close. Gloria, he said, voice low. Do you know what it'll look like if someone hears about this? If someone takes it out of context? A millionaire CEO, letting his black maid teach his child about racism, in the middle of his living room. She nodded. Yes, I know exactly what it looks like. I've been cleaning up their messes for decades. But this wasn't a mess. This was a moment. One he needed. Donovan looked up at her. For the first time, he didn't see his employee. He saw a mother, a survivor, a woman who had swallowed more injustice than he'd ever imagined. Then his phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. He ignored it. Then another ping. Then 3. He finally picked it up. A message from his COO. Call me. Something's happening. You need to see this. Another message popped in. Then a link. He clicked. A 16-second video. A hidden camera. A room. His living room. Gloria and Langston. Her voice. Clear as day. If you don't know who you are, baby, they'll tell you where they think you belong. The video ended. No context. No explanation. Already 2,000 shares. Donovan stared at the screen. Gloria saw the change in his face. What is it? She asked. He looked up. His face pale. You're trending. Her brows furrowed. Trending? Someone recorded you. This morning. You and Langston. It's online. She blinked slowly. What? Donovan stood, pacing again. It's out there. No caption. Just the video. No context. And people are already talking. He turned the screen to her. She read the comments. Who does she think she is? This is indoctrination. This is why we don't let staff overstep. Unbelievable. Imagine if a white nanny did this. Gloria stepped back like she'd been slapped. I didn't know, she whispered. Donovan's hands shook slightly. This could explode. We could both be. A new alert appeared. Fox and Friends had just picked it up. Donovan didn't say anything for a long moment. Then he looked at Gloria. I have to make a decision. Her eyes met his. I understand. And he did. He had a choice. Fire her instantly and distance himself from the story before it became a storm. Or let her stay. Let her finish what she had started. But if he did that, the fire would come. And it wouldn't just burn her. It would burn everything. Donovan opened his mouth to speak, but before he could, his son's voice echoed from upstairs, trembling. Daddy, why are people calling Miss Gloria a criminal on my iPad? Donovan didn't sleep. He sat in his study through the night, illuminated by the ghostly glow of his laptop screen, as the headlines twisted the story into something grotesque. The video had gone from a moment of raw truth to a national spectacle. Talk shows debated his parenting. Op-eds questioned the influence of domestic staff. And the loudest voices weren't just strangers. They were parents at Langston School. By dawn, his inbox was a battlefield. Corporate partners reached out with veiled concerns. One board member at Alexatech asked if Donovan might consider a pause from media appearances until the controversy passed, but buried among the noise was an email marked high priority from Langston School. Subject: immediate request for parent meeting. Sensitive issue. The email was carefully worded, but unmistakable in tone. We are deeply concerned about recent events involving a student and would like to schedule a conversation to ensure community harmony and academic stability. Translation: you've made us look bad. Now we want control back. Donovan didn't trust himself to respond by email. He drove Langston to school himself that morning. The boy sat silent in the back seat, staring out the window. His iPad had been taken away the night before. It hadn't stopped the text messages. Donovan said gently. I want you to know, none of this is your fault. Nothing Gloria said to you was wrong. Okay? Langston didn't look at him. Why are the other parents mad then? Donovan didn't answer. Because the answer was a wound older than either of them. He walked into the administrative building at 8 a.m. sharp. A polished meeting room was waiting for him. Wood-paneled, sunlit, sterile. 3 people sat at the table: Headmaster Trillman, Dean McCall, and one member of the board, a man Donovan recognized from charity galas, but who had never spoken to him beyond small talk. They all stood when he entered. An empty gesture. Mr. Ellis, Trillman said with forced warmth. Thank you for coming. Donovan nodded once. This meeting is being recorded, and I've forwarded all related communications to my legal team. A flicker of discomfort passed over their faces. They gestured for him to sit. He didn't. Not yet. We want to assure you, McCall began, that our goal is to foster a nurturing environment for all our students. However, the recent incident has prompted significant concerns among our parent community. Donovan finally sat. You mean the video? Correct, Trillman said. We're hearing from families who feel concerned about the messaging presented to Langston, and now, by extension, to their children. Donovan folded his hands. So you're telling me that Gloria speaking to my son in my home is a concern to you? McCall interjected. It's not about who said it, it's about the content. The language used could be interpreted as inflammatory. Donovan's jaw clenched. The truth about race is inflammatory. It can be, said the board member bluntly. Especially when shared with minors who don't yet have the tools to process it critically. Donovan chuckled, dark and humorless. Funny. Because the world seems to have no problem teaching white children that slavery was a footnote, and that their ancestors were heroes. But the minute a black woman tells the truth, it's an incident. Trillman leaned forward. We just want to be sure that no child feels targeted or uncomfortable. That line hit like a punch to the gut. No white child, Donovan said sharply. Because Langston has been uncomfortable every time he's been called articulate, like it's a surprise. Every time he's been the only black kid in a classroom photo. Every time your teachers gloss over black history like a landmine they're too scared to step on. There was a pause. The room pulsed with unspoken defensiveness. I came prepared, Donovan said. He pulled out a printed packet and slid it across the table. That's your 4th grade history curriculum. Slavery is mentioned in 2 paragraphs. 2. Meanwhile, you spend a full week on the Boston Tea Party. McCall shifted in her seat. Here's your Diversity Day schedule, he continued. No black guest speakers, no workshops on microaggressions or police bias, but there is a session called Unity Through Patriotism. You want to explain that one to me? Trillman cleared his throat. We believe in age-appropriate framing. You believe in keeping white parents comfortable, Donovan snapped. You believe in protecting fragility, not educating truthfully. The board member straightened. Mr. Ellis, I must remind you, this is a private institution. We reserve the right to evaluate the appropriateness of conversations associated with our students, especially when they draw national attention. Donovan stared at him. Say it plainly. You don't want Langston here anymore. No decision has been made, Trillman said quickly. But we are placing a temporary hold on his involvement in certain programs, including our diversity scholarship track, until the matter is resolved. The breath in Donovan's lungs turned to fire. You're suspending his scholarship? We're evaluating placement and compatibility, McCall said. Donovan stood. You want to talk about compatibility? My son was reading at a 6th grade level last year. He mentors younger students. He's never had a single disciplinary report. And now, because you're afraid of angry emails and hashtags, you're questioning his place here. No one answered. He gathered his packet and walked out. Langston was waiting in the car. How'd it go? He asked quietly. Donovan paused before answering. They're afraid of us, Lang. Not because we did something wrong, but because we made them look in a mirror. When they got home, Gloria was sitting on the back porch, her hands wrapped around a chipped mug of tea. She didn't look up. They want me gone, don't they? She asked softly. Donovan sat beside her. They're pretending it's about you, but it's about what you said. Gloria nodded. I knew it the second he asked that question. Donovan turned to her. Gloria, why did you start that conversation with him? She didn't answer right away. Then she set the mug down and reached into her sweater pocket. She pulled out a folded, time-worn photograph. In it, a teenage boy stood in a school hallway, smiling with one dimple, holding a science trophy in both hands. That's my son, she said. Aaron. Donovan took the photo gently. He died 5 years ago. Police said he matched a description. Said he ran. Said they warned him. Her voice didn't shake. It was too tired for shaking. But the autopsy said he was shot in the back. Twice. Donovan's eyes closed slowly. They didn't put his name in the paper until after the funeral. By then, people had moved on. School never called. Teachers never came. Not one administrator said his name at the assembly. She looked up at him, finally. But you know what did happen? A month later, they brought in a speaker for Unity Week. A retired police officer told the kids about how hard it is to wear the badge. She leaned back against the chair. That's when I stopped believing they'd ever tell our stories. So when Langston asked me if people would look at him differently, I told him the truth. Because the schools won't. And sometimes not even the parents can. Donovan didn't speak. He couldn't. The silence between them said everything. And then Gloria added, barely above a whisper, what I didn't tell him is that Aaron went to Crescent Oaks Prep too. Donovan didn't respond right away. Langston's voice still hung in the air, vibrating with something more dangerous than fear. Confusion. A child's understanding shattering in real time. Daddy, why are people calling Miss Gloria a criminal on my iPad? Donovan turned toward the stairs, his mind racing faster than his feet could move. Gloria stood frozen, one hand on the back of the chair, as if letting go would cause her to collapse. He found Langston sitting at the top of the staircase, clutching his school-issued iPad. His cheeks were flushed, brows furrowed. The screen was still lit. Donovan knelt beside him. Let me see it. Langston hesitated, then handed it over. Donovan scrolled. The video. It had already been reposted to 3 different accounts. One had the caption, "This is what they're teaching your kids behind your back." Another read, "Black Maid lectures rich kid about white hate." It wasn't just trending. It was exploding. Already 1.2 million views. Donovan felt the heat rising behind his ears. There were angry comments, but they weren't just about Gloria. Some were about Langston. About him. This is child abuse.
That boy is being brainwashed.
Take the kid away from him. Millionaire playing victim, pathetic. He stood up slowly, the screen still in his hand. Langston, I need you to stay in your room. Don't go online for now. Okay. Langston nodded, but his eyes said everything. What did I do wrong? Downstairs, Gloria hadn't moved. She looked up when Donovan returned, her voice thin. It's that bad? He nodded once. Worse. I didn't mean for this, she whispered. I know, he sighed. But that won't stop what's coming. Just then his phone buzzed again. Unknown number. He let it ring. Then it buzzed again. This time a name. Principal Merton. Donovan's stomach dropped. He answered. This is Donovan Ellis. The voice on the other end was clipped. Mr. Ellis, we need to discuss an urgent situation involving Langston. Donovan closed his eyes. Yes, I'm aware of the video. Yes. Well, it's been circulating among some of the parents. We've received several calls, and I'll be honest, we're under pressure to act. To act how? Donovan asked, tone flat. There's concern about what kind of conversations are happening in your home. One parent described the video as radical indoctrination. Another is questioning whether Langston's presence is causing disruption in the classroom environment. Disruption? Donovan repeated. Yes, and there's been some mention of reviewing his placement in certain school programs. Donovan's grip tightened on the phone. Let me be very clear. My son is not the problem here. I understand your frustration, Mr. Ellis. But we're a private institution. We have a reputation to protect. So you're saying you'll protect the reputation of racist donors before protecting a 9-year-old child who asked questions? The line went silent. Mr. Ellis, the principal said finally, we're simply trying to navigate this delicately. I'd suggest we schedule a meeting to discuss next steps. Donovan hung up. Gloria looked at him, face pale. They're coming after him, aren't they? They're not even hiding it. He slumped into the leather armchair, phone still in hand. The home that had once felt like a sanctuary now felt like a spotlight. He imagined the news segments already being cut together. A black CEO, a housekeeper, a child in the middle, every layer of it made for easy outrage bait. Gloria whispered, Do you want me to leave? Donovan shook his head. I want to believe that letting you stay won't cost us everything. He looked up, but I don't know if that's true anymore. They sat in silence, until Donovan's laptop pinged. An email, subject inquiry. Media statement regarding viral video. From CNN Online Desk. Gloria's voice trembled. They want a statement? They want blood. He rubbed his temples, and then his son's voice called again from upstairs. Daddy, someone just sent me a message. It says I'm a disgrace. Donovan bolted from the chair. Upstairs, Langston sat shaking. The message came through the school's group app. Anonymous. Donovan stared at it. Your dad's teaching you to hate white people. You're sick. Langston looked up. Is that true? Donovan knelt, wrapped his arms around his son. No. No, Lang. That's not what this is. Then why are they so mad? Donovan didn't have an answer. Just then his laptop pinged again. A new email. Subject, termination request. Gloria Thomas, from Household Staffing Agency. A final line below the message chilled Donovan to his core. Client households are advised to cease contact immediately to avoid legal exposure. Donovan sat frozen. The photo of Aaron still rested between his fingers. But suddenly it felt heavier than steel. Gloria didn't cry. She hadn't cried through the retelling. And she didn't cry now. Her voice was steady, like someone who had told this story to herself in the dark 1,000 times just to stay sane. He was 17, she said quietly. Smart, funny, always pulling apart things just to see how they worked. Used to fix old microwaves from the alley and sell them to neighbors for $20. Said he was gonna study electrical engineering. Donovan looked at the photo again. Aaron's eyes stared back at him, full of mischief and pride. He looked like Langston might, a few years older. He was in the hallway after school, waiting for his ride. There'd been a lunch fight that day. Some other kids. One of the security officers said they saw someone matching Aaron's description running from the scene. She paused, her hands clenched in her lap. But Aaron wasn't running. He was standing, headphones in, backpack on. Donovan leaned forward. You're saying they shot him in the hallway? No, she said softly. They chased him out into the parking lot, told him to stop. He didn't hear them. His music was too loud. He turned around, just turned, and they shot him. Said he reached for something. A long silence stretched across the porch, heavy and suffocating. They found nothing in his hands, she continued. Nothing in his bag but school books. A sandwich. A note I wrote him that morning. Donovan swallowed hard. And the school? What did they say? Gloria gave a bitter smile. They said it was an unfortunate incident. Said he fit a description. Said they were cooperating with the investigation. And the investigation? Closed in under 2 weeks, she said. No charges, no accountability. The officer transferred to another district. The school held a moment of silence, not even a full minute. Donovan looked out across the backyard. The sun was starting to rise higher, casting long shadows across the grass. Why didn't you tell me this before? She looked at him, her voice still even. Because people like you can't always afford to know people like me. Not fully. Not the messy parts. Not the parts that don't fit your narrative. He turned to her. What narrative? She didn't blink. That success protects us. That if we work hard enough, earn enough, smile politely enough, we'll be spared. The truth of it stung more than he wanted to admit. After Aaron died, she went on, I applied to Crescent Oaks for a job. I wanted to stay close to that building. I thought, maybe I could be a witness. Maybe I could make sure the next black boy wasn't alone. Her voice cracked. Just barely. But they never let me clean that wing. Never let me near the student offices. I was invisible. And I let myself be, because at least I was still inside. Donovan felt the guilt creeping in fast, hot and unrelenting. For years, Gloria had been part of his life. Calm, reliable, background. He had never once asked about her past. Never noticed the tiredness in her eyes. When Langston walked into the room. I should have asked, he said quietly. Gloria gave a small shrug. You did what most people do. You hired me. You paid me. You said thank you. That's more than most. Donovan shook his head. That's not enough. No, she agreed. But it's a start. The silence returned, but it wasn't empty this time. It carried weight. Meaning. Gloria took the photo back and slipped it into her pocket. I never wanted to be a martyr, she said. I just didn't want my son's name to vanish. Donovan's voice was tight. And that's why you spoke to Langston. She nodded. Because I saw the same light in his eyes. The same questions. And I couldn't let the world answer them for him. Not the way it did with Aaron. He stood slowly, hands on his hips, eyes brimming. This isn't over. No, she said. It's only just begun. She turned to him then and said, there's something else you need to know. Aaron didn't just die in that school. He was recording when it happened. By noon the next day, Donovan had tripled his security. The estate already had cutting-edge protection, motion sensors in every hallway, fingerprint gates, encrypted access panels, and AI-driven monitoring systems that made his home feel more like a Pentagon annex than a residence. He had designed it that way. He knew the world too well not to. But after Gloria revealed that her son Aaron had been recording when he was killed, and no one had ever seen the footage, Donovan felt a chilling new vulnerability. Was someone trying to silence the truth again? And more urgently, who had recorded the video of Gloria and Langston in the first place? That footage didn't come from his in-house system. He was certain. The internal cameras were limited to entryways and common corridors. The living room, where the conversation happened, was out of view. Whoever posted it had bypassed everything. Donovan brought in a private cyber team he'd used before. Black-owned, trusted, discreet. No ties to government agencies. No NDAs. Just ex-FBI engineers. Digital forensic specialists. And 2 hackers who knew how to sniff out shadows. They scoured every line of code and every digital footprint. The results were unnerving. Someone had accessed the Ellis household's Wi-Fi using a ghost device, disguised to look like one of the internal nanny cams. It had pinged the router at exactly 2:03 a.m., 2 weeks before the video went live. The source of the ping, a location roughly 30 feet from the back hedges. They cloned your device signature, the lead analyst told Donovan, scrolling through a forensic map. They created a false stream, recorded your feed, and uploaded the footage to a remote cloud before wiping the proxy server. Donovan clenched his fists. So this wasn't spontaneous. It was planned. The analyst nodded. They were either watching and waiting, or baiting you. Gloria sat quietly in the corner of the room during the debrief. When the analyst finished, she spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. Aaron's phone, the one he recorded on, it was taken into evidence. They said it was damaged, said nothing could be retrieved. Donovan turned to her, stunned. You think this is connected? I think, she said carefully, someone out there knows how to bury the truth. And they've done it before. Donovan's mind spiraled. Gloria's son had been erased. Now someone was trying to erase her again. Through him, through his son. He felt a sudden nauseating realization. This wasn't just about Langston. It was about making examples out of people who refused to be quiet. Langston tried to return to school that week. But the damage was done. He came home each day quieter, more hollow than the last. Kids avoided him. Teachers, once warm, became cool and mechanical. Other parents pulled their children away at pickup. Donovan had stopped letting him ride the school bus. Instead, he drove him himself, installed a panic button on Langston's backpack, set up GPS tracking alerts. But inside the house, the atmosphere was no safer. There were no knocks on the door, no protests at the gate, but the sense of surveillance lingered. The air was heavy. Every creak of the floorboards felt like a loaded pause. Gloria moved like a shadow, slow and haunted. "It's happening again," she said one morning, not looking up from her tea. Different house, same silence, different boy. Donovan had no answer. He wanted to believe money could fix this, that status could buffer it. But as the media twisted the story, they no longer saw him as a CEO. They saw a threat, a radical, a race-baiting father with a rogue employee. His own company board had requested a clarification statement. He refused. That afternoon, Langston came home, with his backpack half-sipped. He dumped his books on the kitchen island, tired and unfocused. Donovan was sorting mail when a small folded piece of paper slipped from between Langston's science folder. No return address, no name, handwritten, jagged, all uppercase, just 6 chilling words. "We see you. You're next." Donovan froze. Gloria, passing through the kitchen, stopped mid-step. Langston turned, puzzled. "What is it?" Donovan didn't answer right away. He carefully folded the note again and slipped it into his coat pocket. "Nothing," he said, voice flat. "Just trash." Langston raised an eyebrow but didn't press. He turned back to his cereal and started eating in silence. Donovan went to the porch. He stood there staring into the woods that wrapped around his $1 million estate. Every rustle of leaves sounded like a whisper. Every shadow between the trees felt like a question. Inside the safety of concrete and glass, the truth landed like a hammer. He wasn't protecting his son. He was caging him. Later that night, Gloria knocked on his study door, her voice tight. "Donovan, the note? It's not the first." Donovan's voice was barely above a whisper. "What do you mean it's not the first?" Gloria stepped into the study, closing the heavy oak door behind her. The sound of the latch clicking was soft, but final. In her hand were 3 small, folded pieces of paper. Their edges were frayed, the creases deep from being opened and refolded too many times. Without saying a word, she laid them on his desk. Donovan stared at them for a long second before picking up the top one. The handwriting was crude, angry. "Go back where you belong." The second was written in the same jagged pen strokes. "Langston should be careful who he trusts." The third darker ink, shakier hand. "Next time, we won't just write." Donovan's heart pounded. "When did these start?" Gloria's voice was calm, almost practiced. "A week after the video went viral, they were slipped into the mailbox. I found the first one while taking out the trash." "And you didn't tell me?" She shook her head. "You were already under fire. The media, the school, the company. I thought it would fade away." "Fade away?" Donovan's tone sharpened. "Gloria, this isn't gossip. This is a threat." She looked down. "I've had worse." That answer hit him like a slap. He moved around the desk, lowering his voice. "Gloria, this isn't the same. You're not alone anymore." She finally met his eyes. "That's what scares me." Outside, rain started to fall, thin and cold against the glass windows. The house seemed to grow smaller with each drop. For the first time, Donovan realized how deeply entangled they had become. Not just in each other's lives, but in something larger, something systemic, something that had been waiting for a moment like this to reassert its control. That night, he sat beside her in the living room. Langston had gone to bed early. The TV was on, but muted. "Tell me something," he said quietly. "Why did you start that lesson with Langston? What were you really trying to show him?" Gloria's eyes drifted toward the darkened window. "Because I've seen what happens when children don't understand the world they're in, until it's too late. You can't protect them forever, Mr. Ellis. Not with money, not with Gates." She paused, folding her hands together. "I wasn't just teaching him about slavery. I was connecting dots to how they built neighborhoods to keep us out, how they underfund schools in our zip codes, but build stadiums with taxpayer money, how real estate laws still decide where your son will be welcomed or watched." Her words were heavy but rhythmic, almost like a sermon. "People like to talk about history like it's over," she said, "but it's not. It's just been rebranded. You can see it every time someone crosses the street, when a boy like Langston walks by, or when a black teacher gets passed over for promotion because she's too direct. Donovan nodded slowly. He'd lived versions of that truth his entire career, but had trained himself to compartmentalize it, to call it strategy, not survival. Gloria went on, her voice gaining quiet power. When my Aaron died, they said he was out of place. Do you know what that means? It means they saw him as a trespasser. In his own school. That's how deep it goes. The lines were drawn generations ago, and even now, every one of us gets measured by where we're allowed to stand. Donovan leaned back, absorbing her words. You're saying it's all connected. The schools, the neighborhoods, the law, everything, she said. They built a map designed to keep us in our place. And when we step outside it, they call it defiance. He was silent for a long moment. Then he said, So you wanted to prepare Langston? She nodded. Before the world tries to educate him in its own way. Donovan rubbed his forehead. You make it sound like we're still fighting a war that never ended. Gloria smiled sadly. That's because we are. The battleground just looks cleaner now. The rain outside grew heavier. Lightning flashed in the distance, illuminating the reflection of both of them in the window. Two faces, different generations, joined by exhaustion and defiance. Donovan exhaled. I want to believe that if I play the game right, I can change the rules. She looked at him gently. You can't fix a game that was never meant for you to win. He said nothing after that. Minutes passed. The only sound was the steady rain and the faint hum of the security system recalibrating. Then, faintly, a soft click. Donovan looked toward the hallway. Did you hear that? Gloria nodded. It came from outside. He walked toward the door, opened it slowly. Nothing but darkness. The rain pooled against the porch steps, glistening under the dim security lights. When he turned back, Gloria was standing at the edge of the living room rug, holding something. What is that? He asked. She opened her hand. A small black USB drive rested in her palm. I found it this morning, she said. In the mailbox. No envelope, no note. Donovan's stomach dropped. You think it's from the same person? I don't know, she said. But I didn't want to open it alone. They went to his office. He plugged it into a secure offline laptop. The screen flickered. Then a video file appeared. Untitled. He double-clicked. The footage was grainy. A school hallway. A boy's voice. Young, nervous. Laughing faintly behind the camera. Then shouting. Footstep. A command. Stop. Hands where I can see them. Gloria's breath hitched. She grabbed the edge of the desk. Donovan froze. Is that? Her voice cracked. Aaron. On screen, the image blurred, then dropped suddenly. The camera tilted sideways. The last thing visible was the tile floor and two black boots, stepping forward. Then, a single sound, sharp final. The file ended. For a long time, neither of them moved. When Donovan finally spoke, his voice was a whisper. Gloria. This was never lost. Tears filled her eyes, but her expression was pure steel. No, it was buried. And then from the doorway behind them, a voice neither of them expected said quietly, You shouldn't have found that. You shouldn't have found that. The voice stopped the air in the room. Donovan turned slowly. Gloria stiffened beside him. It was Gerald, his estate manager. Late 40s, crisp demeanor, always professional, always quiet. He had been working for Donovan for nearly 6 years. Handled everything from landscaping contractors to vehicle scheduling. Trusted, reliable. Or so Donovan had thought. Gerald stood in the hallway just outside the study door, hands folded behind his back. Calm. Still. Too still.
Where did you get that drive? Donovan asked.
Gerald stepped into the room, eyes flicking once to the paused screen, still showing the grainy final frame of Aaron's last moments. It was never meant to resurface, he said. Gloria's breath caught. You knew. I was working at Crescent Oaks when Aaron was killed, Gerald said evenly. Campus facilities. I wasn't directly involved, but I was there when the officers reviewed the footage. I saw it. I watched them delete it. Donovan moved in front of Gloria. Instinctively. You've been here, in my house, this whole time, he asked. Knowing what happened? Knowing who she was? Gerald didn't flinch. Yes. Why? Because I owed someone a favor, he said. Donovan stared. Who? Gerald looked at Gloria, then back at Donovan. You'll find out soon enough. But what you need to understand is this. Bringing that video back into the world will make you a target. You think what happened with the first video was bad. That was a warm-up. He turned and left as calmly as he had entered. Donovan didn't follow. Neither did Gloria. They stood in the silence, the laptop still glowing with the image of a boy who never came home. Later that night, Donovan sent the video to 2 encrypted drives and placed one in a bank deposit box downtown. The other he sealed in a fireproof safe in the study. He didn't trust clouds. Not anymore. But the damage had already begun. The next morning, Gloria received an email. 5 sentences. No salutation. No explanation. Per client report of inappropriate indoctrination and breach of contract, you are hereby terminated from all future assignments. Your access to our platform has been revoked. Your file has been marked Do Not Hire. Final payout pending internal review. Do not respond to this message. Just like that, she was erased. 1 complaint. 1 lie. No hearing. No chance to explain. Donovan read it over her shoulder. They blacklisted you. She nodded slowly, her voice hollow. That agency was my last one. I've been working for them since before Aaron died. He sat down beside her, numb. They didn't even ask for your side.
No, she said, because they never cared about my side.
By that afternoon, the smear campaign had intensified. A concerned parent published a blog post claiming Gloria had manipulated Langston into feeling racial guilt. The article spread fast, quoted by fringe news outlets as fact. Gloria's face was shared next to headlines about domestic radicalism. Her phone started buzzing. Unknown numbers. Voicemails filled with hate. Donovan had her number changed. Hired additional personal security. But the damage couldn't be undone. Langston asked that night, "Why can't Miss Gloria go outside?" Donovan knelt beside him. Because sometimes telling the truth makes people scared. And scared people try to make others small. Langston thought about that. So they're trying to make her small? Donovan nodded. But we're not going to let them. He meant it. Because Donovan had a secret of his own. A secret he hadn't told Gloria yet. A secret he had been quietly preparing ever since the first corporate investor called to reassess their public alignment. He had recorded every call, logged every email that subtly suggested he disavow her, archived every veiled threat from his board to think about long-term optics. And now, as Gloria's name was being erased, he was building something else behind the scenes. A case. A counter-narrative. A reckoning. He wasn't just going to defend Gloria. He was going to expose the entire network of people who had let her be buried the first time, and tried to do it again. And as he opened his laptop to finalize a confidential legal file, a new alert flashed across the screen. Anonymous upload. Confidential school surveillance archive. Donovan didn't hesitate. As soon as the safe door clicked shut, the weight of years of silence broke inside him like a dam. He had spent a career calculating risk, timing moves, protecting the image of a man who made it. But now, watching Gloria erased in real time, he understood the real cost of restraint. It was time to fight. That very night, Donovan drafted a preliminary notice of legal action with his personal attorney, not a publicist, not a mediator, a litigator, the kind of attorney who specialized in structural takedowns. The plaintiffs, Donovan Ellis and Gloria Thomas. The defendants, Crescent Oaks Preparatory Academy, Premier Household Staffing Group, multiple unnamed parent complainants, and John Doe placeholders for any entity complicit in surveillance, defamation, or retaliatory discrimination. The filing wasn't just about Gloria's firing. It was about the architecture behind it, the entire system that made her vulnerable, disposable, and invisible. The language of the lawsuit was fierce: wrongful termination, coordinated surveillance, institutional bias, breach of contract, invasion of privacy, and systemic racial discrimination. Donovan wasn't just coming for justice. He was coming to burn the playbook. Within 24 hours of filing, the story hit local news. Within 48, it was national. Black tech founder sues elite school and staffing firm after viral video fallout. CEO claims private security tried to erase housekeeper over truth-telling. Former staff began speaking out on racism in the domestic industry. Donovan's company board called an emergency meeting. Investors panicked. Emails poured in urging him to release a calming statement, to clarify that this was personal and not reflective of Alexatech's corporate direction. He declined. "This is personal," he told them, "but it's also professional. Because what good is building the future if you let the past repeat itself under your nose?" They warned him of blowback, brand risk, legal drag. He didn't care, because within days, something unexpected began to happen. Nannies, drivers, tutors, janitors, gardeners, all of them started coming forward. Most were people of color. Many had worked in Crescent Oaks or adjacent elite neighborhoods. Their stories varied, but the patterns were eerily familiar. Fired without cause after speaking up. Mic'd without consent. Forced to sign discretion clauses that prohibited them from even mentioning racism or discrimination. Children told not to talk to them unless instructed. Donovan's legal team began organizing testimonies, building a timeline, connecting dots across agencies. Meanwhile, threats escalated. Someone spray-painted "liar" on Donovan's front gate. A brick was thrown at one of his cars in the driveway. His face was turned into memes, accused of woke corruption, of being a race hustler, of manipulating a child for attention. Langston was kept home full-time now. Gloria rarely left the house at all. Donovan moved his meetings online and increased private security again. But then something shifted. One night, just after midnight, the doorbell rang. Donovan checked the security feed. No one there. He opened the front door cautiously. The porch was empty, except for a sealed manila envelope, placed directly on the welcome mat. No note, no label. He brought it inside and opened it slowly. Inside the folder were printed documents. Dozens. Employee logs. Email exchanges. Access badge metadata. A surveillance schedule. And at the top, a short typed message on plain white paper. "You're not wrong, it's worse. A friend." Donovan spread the papers out on the kitchen table. At first glance, it was hard to make sense of. But as he read, his eyes narrowed. These weren't just school records. They were internal Crescent Oaks administrative documents. Security protocols. Files not meant for anyone outside the highest levels. And then he saw it.
A memo dated 3 years prior, labeled internal use only.
Concerns raised about housekeeper Gloria Thomas. Recommend limiting access to student wings. See incident report. Aaron Thomas file. Flagged for quiet monitoring. His chest tightened. They had been watching her since before the video. Not just at Donovan's house. At the school. In the neighborhood. Another page listed personnel flagged for ideological influence. Gloria's name appeared in bold. So did 3 other names. All black. All fired in the past year. Donovan stared at the documents. Adrenaline spiking. They weren't just reacting to what happened with Langston. They had been preparing for it. And just as he began scanning the last page, a knock came at the back door, followed by a whisper through the intercom. "Mr. Ellis, I'm the janitor who left that envelope, but I'm not the only one with more to give." The message sat in Donovan's inbox for hours before he opened it. "You missed something. There's a video you haven't seen yet." There was no sender ID. Just a Dropbox link and a single line. Search the term Diversity Placement Review. Folder marked DFR2. Donovan's legal team ran a sweep. It wasn't malware. The link was clean, but encrypted, password protected with a phrase that only made sense to someone on the inside. Optics Nace Equity. He clicked. What he found changed everything. Inside the shared folder were files from one of the largest corporate diversity consultancies in the country. The same firm Alexa Tech had quietly contracted with just 3 years earlier to optimize representation goals. The same firm that Crescent Oaks had used for their so-called inclusion audit. And buried within those folders was something called the diversity folder. It was a system. A spreadsheet-laced algorithm-driven document that tracked how black hires were categorized across institutions, schools, corporations, staffing agencies. And not just how many were hired,
But where they were placed.
how visible they were allowed to be, what kind of duties they were assigned, how quickly they were promoted or removed. Donovan scrolled, each tab more damning than the last. Columns labeled photographic exposure risk, client comfort score, accent mannerism flag, and the most disturbing visual assimilation ranking. The data showed that certain workers were strategically moved to non-visible roles, night shifts, back-of-house cleaning, remote campuses, based entirely on how representationally safe they appeared, even when they outperformed white colleagues. And Alexa Tech was on the list. So was Crescent Oaks. So were at least 17 other companies and institutions that Donovan recognized. The air in his chest tightened. Gloria had been right. Aaron had been right. They hadn't been invisible by chance. They were made invisible by design. He printed out every page, annotated each section. Then he called his attorney. "We're expanding the case," he said. "I want every company tied to this investigated, including mine." The attorney hesitated. "Donovan, that could implicate your own board, your own leadership. Then they should be implicated, Donovan said. But what he didn't expect, what knocked the breath from his lungs, was the message that came next. A number he hadn't seen in years. Andre Wexler, one of his closest friends, former co-founder, still a major shareholder in Alexatech, the man who had introduced Donovan to the diversity firm in the first place. The message was short. We need to talk. I didn't know what they were doing with our data. I thought we were fixing something. I was wrong. They met that night in the back room of a quiet jazz bar Andre used to frequent before their success made them too recognizable. Andre looked older, grayer, but not just in hair, in guilt. They sold it to me as efficiency, he said. Said it was a better way to ensure equitable hiring, to streamline inclusion. I never read the metadata. I never saw the hidden tags. But I should have. Donovan was stone-faced. You let them take people's faces and turn them into risk scores. I know, Andre said, and I can't undo that. But I can help burn it down. How? I have internal emails, meeting notes, contracts showing they were paid bonuses based on invisibility metrics. Donovan exhaled slowly. You're saying this wasn't just tolerated. It was incentivized. Andre nodded. And not just here. The entire system. Staffing, schools, tech. It's everywhere. A long silence stretched between them. Then Donovan leaned in. If I take this public, we both go down. Andre looked him in the eye. Then let's go down doing something that matters. But before Donovan could respond, his attorney called urgent, breathless. You need to come home. Now. Gloria's gone. And she didn't leave alone. The Crescent Oaks Preparatory Academy gymnasium didn't look like a war zone, but that's exactly what it had become. Rows of folding chairs filled every inch of the floor. News cameras hovered in the back. Parents clutched signs and smartphones, like shields. The fluorescent lights buzzed above the crowd, but the real electricity came from something else. On stage sat the district's community response panel, a curated blend of polished school officials, a public relations officer, and a diversity consultant, who had already introduced herself twice, nervously reminding the audience she was here to listen, not lecture. But no one was listening. Not tonight. The microphone popped as Headmaster Trillman leaned in, clearing his throat like it could clear the tension. We're here tonight, he began, to address the unfortunate events surrounding recent publicity and the resulting community stress. This town hall is a space for healing. Healing? A voice barked from the front row. A mother stood, blonde hair, expensive jewelry, a rolled-up placard that read, "Stop CRT now." You call what that woman said to our children healing? That was trauma. That was hate speech wrapped in victimhood. Applause broke out. Another father stood, pointing toward the stage. You let ideology into our homes. She was hired to clean, not to reprogram. Donovan sat near the back, jaw clenched. His hand rested on Langston's shoulder. He could feel the tension in his son's body, tense, still silent. Security guards stood near the exits, but they looked more like ushers than protection.
Donovan leaned in. You okay?
Langston nodded, but he didn't look away from the stage. I want to listen. Donovan's stomach tightened. The microphone passed to a parent with a laptop bag still slung over his shoulder. I've reviewed every minute of that video, he said, and I want answers. Is this school vetting our domestic staff? Is there a system for psychological background checks? Murmurs of agreement. And then louder than the rest, a mother shouted, we need cameras in every house if this is what's happening behind closed doors. The air changed. That wasn't just paranoia. It was threat. No one on the panel corrected her. No one condemned the suggestion. Donovan gripped Langston's hand. I want to speak, Langston whispered. Donovan blinked. What? Langston repeated, stronger this time. I want to say something. No, Donovan said quickly. This isn't. But it was already too late. Langston stood. The movement caught the room's attention immediately. A ripple moved through the chairs. A child standing alone among a crowd of grown-up fear.
Whispers.
That's him. The kid from the video. The Ellis boy. Langston walked down the aisle toward the microphone. His steps slow but certain. Donovan followed. A few paces behind. The moderator, a woman with too many note cards and not enough nerve, hesitated before holding out the mic. Do you want to say something, young man? Langston took it, looked up at the stage, then scanned the room. My name is Langston Ellis, he said. I'm in 4th grade. Silent. I have one question, he continued, voice steady. If telling me the truth about how people like me are treated makes you uncomfortable, then what are you really trying to protect? Gasps. Donovan froze. His chest swelled with both fear and pride. Langston didn't stop. Miss Gloria told me about her son, about history, about real things. She didn't scare me. She helped me understand who I am. The room went so quiet it almost felt sacred. Langston took a breath. Why is that scarier to you than a lie? Someone hissed. Whose kid is this? A man yelled. That's Donovan Ellis' son. From the viral video. And with that the crowd turned. The applause from earlier was gone. In its place, a rising storm. A father stood. This is abuse. He's been coached. He's a puppet, someone shouted. Donovan stepped forward, placing a hand on Langston's shoulder, shielding him. Security moved in, not to protect but to de-escalate. Donovan spoke firmly. My son has more courage than anyone in this room. More yelling. Words like indoctrination, agenda, child exploitation. Langston looked up at his father. Did I do something wrong? No, Donovan said, wrapping him in his arms. You did something brave. And then just as the crowd reached a fever pitch, a new voice cut through the noise. Hoarse, familiar, unapologetic. That boy spoke the truth. And I'll say it again. Gasps echoed. Heads turned toward the entrance. Standing in the doorway, soaked from rain, face tired but eyes burning, was Gloria. Gloria didn't step forward immediately. She stood in the threshold like a challenge. Her clothes clung to her from the downpour outside, but her presence made the air inside the gym feel even heavier. Donovan could barely breathe. Langston whispered, Miss Gloria. She nodded gently at him. You were brave, baby. You did just right. One of the panelists, clearly panicked, leaned into the mic. Ma'am, I'm not sure this is the forum. Gloria stepped forward, her voice slicing through. You made this the forum when you let people talk about me like I wasn't a person, like I wasn't in the room, like I wasn't a mother. She moved down the center aisle, parting the sea of parents. They didn't stop her. My son, she said slowly, was killed in this very district. Not because he was violent, not because he was disruptive, but because he was black, because someone thought his walk looked suspicious, because his hoodie made them nervous. A woman in the crowd shouted, That has nothing to do with this. Gloria turned. Sharp. It has everything to do with this. She faced the panel. You ask if I was teaching hate. No. I was teaching truth. I was teaching survival. I was teaching your children and mine. That there are things this country won't put in textbooks. That there are systems older than your fears, stronger than your denial, and meaner than your policies. The panel remained frozen, unsure whether to intervene or let her keep speaking. But the crowd wasn't done. One father, arms crossed, growled, This isn't about race. It's about boundaries. Gloria faced him head on. Then why are the only people getting erased the ones who look like me? Silence. Let me guess, she continued, eyes fierce. It's not racist to fire a black woman for sharing history. It's not political to erase a child's death from the school record. It's not indoctrination to teach children to pretend slavery was an economic dispute, and nothing more. She walked to the mic Langston had left behind and looked out over the crowd. I didn't raise Aaron to be angry. I raised him to be alert. And when I saw Langston, I saw the same softness, the same curiosity, the same risk. Her voice cracked. I wasn't just cleaning your houses. I was watching your kids learn things that would one day make them afraid of mine. Donovan stepped forward, placing a steadying hand on her shoulder. You think I wanted to go viral? She said. You think I wanted this attention? I wanted a paycheck. I wanted peace. But this country doesn't let people like me have peace, unless we stay small. She looked directly into the camera at the back of the room. But I'm done being small. More murmurs. Some parents shifted uncomfortably. Others looked down. Then, from the corner of the room, Andre Wexler walked in, holding a flash drive in his hand. Donovan's eyes widened. He hadn't expected him here. Not now. Andre walked straight up to the panel table and placed the drive on the table. This, he said, voice calm but resolute, contains internal documents from multiple institutions in this district. Emails, memos, hiring metrics. I was part of the system. I helped build it. And I'm here to testify that everything Ms. Thomas is saying is true. The room erupted. Chaos. Reporters ran forward. Parents gasped. Security radios buzzed. But Donovan was focused on one thing. Langston, standing next to Gloria. looking up at her with quiet awe. He knew, in that moment, this wasn't just about lawsuits or videos. This was about a child who saw someone stand up and tell the truth when it was dangerous. This was about a community being forced to reckon with what it chose not to see. Headmaster Trillman fumbled toward the mic. "I think we need to adjourn." But it was too late. The truth had already landed. And as Donovan turned to usher Gloria and Langston away from the crowd, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. One sentence. "You've started something you can't stop. And we know where she is." The courtroom was packed, not just with reporters and attorneys, but with parents, former staff, local activists, and quiet figures from Gloria's past, who had remained silent far too long. The lawsuit had gripped the community for weeks, but the trial itself moved swiftly. Public outrage, mounting national attention, and a quiet nudge from the Department of Justice had forced the district to act faster than it ever had before. Crescent Oaks Preparatory Academy, and the staffing agency that employed Gloria, were now co-defendants. The very institutions that once boasted pristine reputations were now being asked to answer for the silencing, targeting, and erasure of a black woman and a child. Donovan sat at the plaintiff's table, jaw tense, tie slightly loosened. He looked drained. The sleepless nights had carved shadows beneath his eyes. But he didn't look defeated. Just focused. The seat beside him was empty. Gloria wasn't there. Instead, she lay in a hospital bed across town, pale and wired to machines. The stress, the threats, the years of buried pain had culminated in a cardiac episode that nearly killed her. She'd been admitted the night before opening arguments. The doctor said it was a miracle she survived. But even through the tubes and medication, Gloria had one demand: get my letter to court, no matter what. Now the courtroom sat silent as the judge took her seat. Murmurs died down. The jury watched Donovan closely. The defense's opening statements had already painted Gloria as unqualified, emotionally unstable, and outside her scope. They tried to reduce her to a maid who had overstepped, a liability to children, a cautionary tale. But then Donovan stood, letter in hand. He walked to the podium slowly, unfolded the creased paper, and began to read. To the court, "My name is Gloria Thomas. I am a mother, a worker, and a witness to a system that smiles at you while cutting out your tongue. I was fired not because I failed my duties, but because I told a child the truth, a truth this country hides in polished brochures and hollow diversity statements. I lost my son to silence, and when I spoke again, they tried to erase me too. But this time, I won't disappear quietly. This letter is not a request for sympathy. It's a record, so that if I don't make it to the stand, the world will still know what was done. To those who say I crossed a line, let me ask, what line? The one between truth and comfort, between privilege and pain. If my voice made you uncomfortable, good. That means you heard me. And if you ever cared about the children you say you protect, you'll stop protecting a system that only serves them when they stay silent." Signed, Gloria Thomas. Donovan's voice cracked as he folded the paper. The courtroom sat in stunned silence. Even the defense attorneys looked shaken. The judge cleared her throat, visibly emotional. The jury scribbled, some blinking back tears. The closing arguments followed. Both sides made their final appeals. But the weight of Gloria's words lingered like smoke in the air. 3 hours later, the jury returned. The verdict: guilty. Crescent Oaks was found liable on multiple counts: wrongful termination, racial discrimination, unlawful retaliation, and violation of privacy rights. Premier Household Staffing Group was also found liable, complicit in race-based hiring practices, and suppressing staff complaints. Cheers erupted in the courtroom. Some cried. Gloria's sister wept in the gallery. But the moment of victory was short-lived. Because then, the judge raised her gavel again to address the motion for hate crime enhancement. The room fell still. She continued, slowly. While the court finds the evidence deeply disturbing, state law requires a high burden of proof for hate crime classification. This includes explicit statements or manifestos demonstrating targeted racial hostility. The evidence presented, while systemic, does not meet that threshold. Donovan's face dropped. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. The gavel came down. Bang. No hate crime designation. It was a blow, a symbolic erasure. They had proven so much, but not enough to call it what it was: racism, violence, a pattern. Legally, not hate. Not yet. Outside, reporters swarmed for statements. Cameramen shouted. Protesters gathered. Supporters raised signs reading, "Believe Gloria," and "Truth Nay." Donovan stepped out. But before he could speak, his phone buzzed. A blocked number, he answered. The voice on the other end was low, calm, familiar. "You think this is over?" A pause. "Check your front door." The line went dead. Donovan spun around. At the end of the courthouse steps, a delivery van was pulling away. His phone buzzed again. Security alert. Motion detected at front porch. He opened a camera app. On the doorstep, a small black box. Wired. Ticking. The black box didn't explode, but it detonated something inside Donovan. Just the same. Inside the package was no bomb, no wires, just a DVD. The label was handwritten in sharp, jagged strokes. "Truth hurts." Donovan inserted it into his laptop alone. The study dimmed, curtains drawn, security on standby outside his door. The screen blinked to life. No music, no credits, just grainy footage, black and white, time-stamped, clips from hidden cameras, housekeepers folding sheets, nannies playing with toddlers, teachers organizing classrooms, all black or brown, all under silent surveillance. Each clip had captions in white block letters: observed, flagged for deviation, monitored for ideology. Then came the footage Donovan dreaded. Gloria, sitting at the Ellis kitchen table, Langston across from her. No sound, just lips moving, gestures shared, her hand guiding his through a workbook, his smile curious, innocent, unafraid. Then a pause in the feed. Red circle around Langston's face. The screen cut to black. No credits. Just one final phrase. "We see you." Donovan sat in the dark, unmoving. The hum of the laptop filled the silence. He felt hollow, furious, helpless. His home, the one he built brick by brick from ambition and sacrifice, had become a weaponized memory. It was no longer sanctuary. It was evidence, and his son had been watched, cataloged, targeted. That night, Langston came home with a drawing from art class. A house on fire. Donovan knelt beside him. "What's this, bud?" Langston shrugged. "It's our house, but it's okay. I put water on the side." Donovan didn't cry, but his chest cracked like the glass in that guest house window. Later, he walked to the guest house. Gloria had returned from the hospital under strict orders. No stress, minimal movement, no media. She opened the door with a quiet smile, fatigue still in her face but defiance in her eyes. "I can't protect him from all of it," Donovan confessed. Gloria nodded. "You're not supposed to, but you can help him name it. That's how it loses power." The next morning, Donovan didn't send the driver. He made breakfast, tied Langston's shoes, walked him to school on foot. The neighborhood buzzed. Cars slowed. Curtains shifted. Parents whispered. But Donovan kept walking. At the school gate, some turned away. Others pretended not to see him. He didn't flinch. Langston held his hand tightly. Donovan knelt beside him. "You know how you always ask why people don't talk about things?" Langston nodded. "Today," Donovan said, "we stopped pretending." They walked through the front gate together.
Not as a millionaire CEO.
Not as the father of a viral child, just as a man broken open, unblinded, unafraid. And as they stepped inside, Gloria's voice echoed in his mind. "If you ever cared about the children you say you protect, you'll stop protecting a system that only serves them when they stay silent." Donovan turned to Langston. "Hey," he said softly, "if you could change one thing about this school, what would it be?" Langston thought for a moment, then said, "I'd make sure nobody ever felt invisible again." Donovan nodded. And just like that, the world tilted forward. Not toward comfort, but toward truth. As Donovan held open the school door for his son, one thought seared through his chest. What would you have done if you came home early and found the truth hiding in your living room? Some truths get edited, some lives get erased. But silence helps no one. If this story made you feel something, don't let it stop here. Type yes if you believe in justice. Subscribe if this broke your heart. It began at 3:12 a.m. A sharp crash shattered the silence. A rock through the window of the guest house. No note. No warning. Just shattered glass and the distant sound of tires peeling away into the dark. Donovan didn't hear it immediately, but the motion detectors triggered an alert to security. A soft knock on his bedroom door roused him seconds later. By the time he reached the guest house, barefoot in the wet October grass, the damage was done. The window had burst inward. Glass coated the hardwood floor in jagged, glinting pieces. The curtain fluttered in the wind, and on the garden wall, scrawled in thick black paint, were 3 words: "Know your place." The handwriting was erratic. Angry. It wasn't a prank. It was a warning. Gloria stood silently nearby. She had been staying in the guest house since reappearing days ago. She didn't need to ask who did it. She already knew. Donovan stared at the message, jaw tight. His first instinct was to call the police. He hesitated, then dialed. When they arrived, their posture was mechanical. Questions detached. Any enemies? Anyone upset about recent events? Could this be a prank? Gloria's voice cut through. You really think this is a prank? One officer squatted to examine the paint. Another photographed the broken window. The senior officer turned to Donovan. We'll file the report, sir. But based on what we see, no profanity, no explicit racial slurs. We're not sure this qualifies as a hate crime under the statute. Donovan blinked. They broke onto my property and left a racial threat. The officer shrugged. It's vague. Hate crimes require intent and identity targeting. That's clearly provable in court. Gloria crossed her arms. If they'd used the N-word, would that help you decide? No one answered. The officers left 20 minutes later. No arrests. No urgency. Just a clipboard and a promise to follow up. Donovan stood in silence long after they left. Gloria didn't say another word. But her silence wasn't quiet. It was screaming. The next morning, Andre called. They know. I just got flagged by the board. I think someone saw our text thread. Donovan stared at the broken window. Then they already know it was you. Andre paused. Then we don't have much time. 3 days passed without incident. Until the SUV returned. Langston was outside in the yard, with 2 plainclothes security agents nearby. They were trained, professional, discreet, meant to keep a low profile while providing real protection. But some things slipped through even the best protocols. A black SUV passed slowly the first time. Then again, the third time, it accelerated. A bottle flew from the passenger side. It hit the front gate, shattering. At first it looked like water, but the smell said otherwise. Bleach. Inside the bottle were soaked pieces of paper, burned on one side. One landed on the sidewalk, flapping in the breeze. Langston picked it up before security could stop him. He read the words. It was a printed transcript from the viral video. His own words, underlined in red ink. Why is that scarier to you than a lie? Gloria saw it and screamed. Security ushered Langston inside. Donovan sealed the bottle in a Ziploc bag, gloves on. His hands shook as he placed it in a safe. That night he didn't sleep. He combed through hours of security footage, cross-referencing license plates, timestamps, anything. And he found something. The camera feed once again had glitched. 10 seconds of footage gone. The same kind of glitch that happened the day Gloria disappeared. Same timing. Same distortion. Same silence. This wasn't random. It was coordinated. He picked up his phone. They're escalating, he told his lawyer, and the police aren't doing a thing. There was a pause. Then her voice. Then maybe it's time we make them care. Donovan exhaled. Release the footage. All of it. Let the press see everything. And tell them this isn't about a single incident. It's a campaign. She agreed. But before the media could even spin up their engines, something else arrived. A package. No return address. Just left on his doorstep like a delivery. Inside, a school yearbook from 5 years ago. Aaron Thomas's face circled in red marker. And next to it, a yellow sticky note. 5 chilling words.
One down, you're next.
And as Donovan gripped the yearbook in his hands, a shadow moved outside the window.
Not a car, not a neighbor, just a still figure watching.